I really like eucalyptus oil. Um, I'm trying to imagine a raisable opposition by my two enemies. I can imagine them saying to third parties if they were approached or questioned, or it's Reichstagi, they say, and oh, we really liked him and enjoyed giving him work opportunities, or they'll give recourse to saying a bunch of nice things, certainly enough to say he was given a fair go. And they might avoid, particularly if Roger were questioned, they might avoid insanity claims directly, but be intimative of, we're just a bit worried for him, wanting to get better, that sort of talk. Now, as I've discussed, essentially, when it comes to their theology concerning Jesus Christ, the Christians say Savior, and the Freemasons consider him just a martyr. I believe neither. But they'd have, as soon as you have them admitting that moral lessons, or if they get defensive and say, what relevance is establishing that we're Freemasons? So what if we have morals? Which is one thing I've heard said. Very chest thump, arrogant. And well, okay. Here's what is moral to you. Essentially, you have no comprehension of what supernaturalism is, because if it's always beyond what you can think about, then it's beyond what you can think about. You might as well. There'd be more dignity in you being an agnostic theist. But as I've tried to argue, or at least raise the question, does what is what's naturally knowable taken more and more for granted by the constant appeal to the supernatural in principle by theologians? So then when Gary and Roger go, well, yeah, we have morals, so what if we have morals as Freemasons? Well, you've just admitted then, and this is why they might have certain interest in concealing Freemasonry from, or ties to Freemasonry from their business and the world of commerce and the public eye. You can say it to them, and you can say it to Christians too. You've just admitted that you are open to bribery. You are open to bribery, kidnap, and some sort of human sacrifice or human sacrifice inspired ritual just for a feeling of at least for some feeling of religious fulfillment. So that would be their ethics and why they'd hide it, and they were the only group too that I noticed. So then you would say to them, well, your ethicals aren't too impressive. And there's another proof there of this oddity, is that ethicals is actually the name that they will give to the wholesalers' bags of pharmaceutical goods delivered to the chemist. They get called ethicals, ethical stock, ethicals, prescription drugs, ethicals. But there might be quite a bit of substance to it, no pun intended. Asking the question if these ethicals plonked on the floor in a plastic bag have more morals or more moral integrity than this Gary and Roger, and I would think they do. And that may seem harsh because they're obviously medicines, they're not sentient beings. But Gary and Roger already believe in getting their morals from non-existent beings, so it might be close to speaking a language that they can understand without me representing myself as something that I'm not, or some sort of theistic believer, which I'm not, by saying that, yeah, well, okay, well, let's think about how these tablets have more morals than you. And one thing is that they genuinely, the tablets don't care about how much more of the more expensive or profitable, lucrative substances, upon whether it be directly or upon rebate from the Health Insurance Commission, are sold. They're very indifferent that way. If you sell a little packet of 12 Panadols to if you sell 96 packets of morphine, between the tablets themselves, it's really something that none of them care about at all. And so monetary gain doesn't matter to these ethicals tablets. So I could see why. I imagine it was Roger and Gary's decision to name them ethicals. Perhaps it reflects that they can't. They're scientists, and their understanding of scientific method means they know their gods don't exist. But so further church ritualism is really only to their shame and embarrassment. So it might be that they're going, hail the tablets. They call them ethicals. But yeah, certainly more ethical than them, because it's just I wouldn't call it splitting hairs, but it's pathetic when you consider that any courtroom would throw out the Gospels as if they were to bring it to a courtroom and study. Let's study and determine, should Jesus have been crucified, and they were exploring that question. They couldn't rely on the veracity. That courtroom couldn't rely on the veracity of the Gospels in order to make a judgment. So, yet they're invoked as proofs by the Christians as the knowledge of a savior, and by the Freemasons as the knowledge of a martyr. But both of them are committing the same fallacy, which is, 30 years after an execution, tell the life story of the person, and yet we know Chinese whispers fucks the veracity of information from the turn from one person to another in the span of a few seconds.